I'm François Legoff, working on the IUCLID product management here in NECA. And I wanted to give you a short introduction about IUCLID so that everybody knows at least a minimum about this tool. So IUCLID is the tool that is used in order to prepare registration dossiers, but it's also, because it's mentioned also in the REACH regulation, you have this article here. And you can see in this article that there is a duty for ECHA to continue to work on the format in which the data are stored in IUCLID. And this is because there is an interest and the will to make IUCLID useful for not only REACH, but other regulations, European regulations, REACH, CLP, biocides product regulations, but also outside of EU to make this this software and this format available as much as possible, so that to avoid data entry duplications and to avoid also being trained on many different systems whenever you have to prepare regulatory dossiers about chemicals. So you can see from this map from where IUCLID 6 is downloaded, mainly in Europe, but also in different countries. People are preparing IUCLID dossiers to submit in different contexts. Of course, REACH and CLP and BPR are the main users for this tool, but other regulatory authorities are starting to use it as well. This tool is developed in collaboration with the OECD, so the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And the aim of the OECD is to develop tools that can be reused and can be harmonized among different regulatory authorities, at least amongst the OECD member countries, which are a big part of the countries in the world. You see IUCLID 6 here is there to record and manage the data about chemicals, and it enables links with other tools that are developed in the context of chemical data. So you have on the top there the QSAR toolbox. There are some interactions between IUCLID and the QSAR toolbox in order for you to perform read across or calculate some QSARs in order to fill in the gaps of your data sets for your chemical. You have links to the eChem portal, and this is another tool that is developed at the OECD level. Metapath and GHSTS are tools that are used for pesticides, but it means that the aim is to reuse as much as possible the tools we have and the data we have collected on chemicals and you are collecting on chemicals. Just some concepts in order for you to understand how IUCLID is working. It's like a big library with books on each of your substances. So you see that the database is organized around substances that contains information about the substance. Physico-chemical properties, but also use and exposure information, tox and ecotox data. So each piece of information is linked to the substance, to the relevant substance. Then there are other things that are there to help, for example, reporting substance identity information. It's called the reference substance and the chemical inventories. You have other elements that are there to manage company and legal entity information. It's called the legal entity and the sites. And then on top of that, you can always link any kind of attachments, files, and also add comments on the data you insert in the database. So here you have an overview of the type of information that is managed and recorded in IUCLID. You have substance identity information, such as the composition and the analytical information. Then the second box is the classification labeling information, and as well as the PBT assessment outcome. Use and exposure information, where you describe your the quantities you are producing or importing, or how you manufacture the substance, if you are a manufacturer, how much you import. This is the place where you can also give a brief description of your uses, and if you have to do a chemical safety report, this is the place where you would report also exposure information. If we move to the blue part of this IUCLID dataset, you see studies and endpoint summaries, and this is where you collect information about the properties of your chemicals, phys-chem properties, environmental fate and behavior, ecotox and tox data. And at the end, there is also in purple there a place where you can store assessment reports. So the chemical safety report for each, but under biocides, there are other kinds of assessment reports. You can report also the guidance on safe use that later on will be in the safety datasheet. Another concept that is important to know when you are using Euclid as well is that is the dossier. These are packages of information that you build when you are about to submit information to regulatory authorities. So you manage your data in the database. You have one book per substance where you collect all the information. And depending on what you have to submit to who, you can select whatever is relevant and include that into a dossier, which is a frozen version of your data on the substance. So you package all that in a dossier using the tool, and this is the dossier that you submit to the regulatory authorities, so to ECHA. So how does it work? You start from here, the creation or the update of the dataset. So you create a dataset to collect the information that is needed under a specific regulation. Then you will prepare a dossier containing all this information. You will submit it to the authorities, to ECHA. And after evaluation, we might send you some comments or decision or communication to ask you for more information or for clarification. And in that case, you would come back to the dataset that you have in your Euclid database and update the information there. Once it's updated, you would create another dossier and submit it. And the cycle continues until all the information is available. If you need to change some things in the dossier, you can do the same as well. You will describe another use, or you will update the estimated quantities for a year. So you would update the dataset, create a new dossier, and submit it. And this is what we are going to test today, or to do today during the different exercises we have. So that's the standard user interface of Euclid 6. We are not going to use Euclid 6. There are different versions that are available, but this is the one that most people are used to. And it's divided into different panels. So you have a navigation panel where you manage your substances. You have a data view and data entry panel where you enter the data, and the information panel here gives you more functionalities or more information about the data. When it was created, when it was modified, if comments are available or attachments are there to store files on the information displayed. So as I said, we are not going to use this version today, but two other versions that are built on Euclid. So we have built different user interface in order to be more suitable to different types of users. And the first one will be used by this side of the room, the ones who have a beginner exercise. And you will be using ReachIT Online. And this tool is available from ReachIT directly. It's mainly made for members of joint submission. So if you are preparing a registration dossier as a member inside the joint submission, you might consider using this tool. It can be used if, as a member, you agree with all the information submitted on your behalf by the lead. So if you have information on your own that you don't want to share with the joint submission, it means that you want to opt out from the joint submission, at least for some part of the data. You cannot use ReachIT Online. But if you agree with all the data that is submitted by the lead, then you can use the ReachIT Online dossiers. And it's built in a way that it's providing some simplified dossier creation wizard. So you go through the application step by step, and you fill in the data that is required for your registration. And this is what you will see today, at least on the left side of the room. Then in April this year, we have launched this Euclid 6 Cloud version for SMEs, and Tommy will give you more information about this. This is a simplified web version of Euclid for SME companies. You will see the added value of this version presented by Tommy, but it it can be used by anybody who wants to prepare a registration dossier, member or lead. It provides all the tools that Euclid provides, because you can switch to also the more advanced user interface. But it's only available for SMEs for the registration dossier preparation. And then you can still use also Euclid 6, the full version that you can download from the Euclid 6 website. It's for mainly for large companies and frequent users. You have a full set of functionalities that we will not see today or use today during the training. But at the end of the training today, there will be a Q&A session where we will address some of these points. So depending on what you are interested in, we will present some more advanced functions, or at least give an introduction to these advanced functions so that you understand that they are there and that you can use them when you are back to your office. This version exists in 2 different flavors if you want. You have a desktop version that you can install on your computer. There is an installer, and in a few clicks you can install Euclid and have Euclid running on your computer. And there is also a server version that can be installed in your company, and access can be given to different users. So you can all work on the same database if needed. So that's all for the introduction on Euclid 6. I will give the floor back to Tommy, who will show you some specificities of the cloud services.
Thank you, Francois. We're doing good speed. Let's continue. So we talk about, as you can see, we talk about ECHA Cloud Services, and we talk about Euclid Cloud for SMEs. Just to clarify the difference, the cloud service is a platform for delivering IT tools, and the Euclid Cloud for SME is a service which is provided inside the ECHA Cloud Services. The main idea with the providing of IT software into the cloud is that we can reuse the authentication mechanisms that we already use for all our other software. So with the same account information, so the same account you're using ReachIT, R4BP, or for example EPIC, you can also now access the cloud to use it from there. So you don't need to have any kind of other type of authentication. So what is the Euclid Cloud? Well, as Francois already mentioned, it's a simplified Euclid provided as a cloud service with the aim to provide a service to prepare for the Reach 2018 deadline, and specifically for the SMEs. So in that sense, it has less functionalities than Euclid. You can access the full Euclid, but it's a little bit cut down to make it easier to comprehend. And we also implemented something that we call the guided support for Reach 2018 dossier creation, and that's what we're going to be using today on the right side of the room. We have 2 different services. We have the Euclid Cloud for SME, which is the main thing, but then we also have a trial one. Anyone can test out the trial one, but otherwise the SME is meant for SME companies or consultants working for the SMEs. The main difference between the SME and the trial service is mainly aesthetics. The SME has a large storage space because you can store your data there. The trial is meant for being used for testing or training. Also, there is an automatic termination of unused subscriptions, so the trial will expire after 90 days of non-use, where the SME only goes after 2 years, and then we'll still keep your data for a year. But you will be informed, no worries. The SME is of course backed up, but the trial is not backed up. So what's the advantage of using the cloud for the SME versus using a standard Euclid? Well, the first thing is that you don't have to care about updates. You don't have to care about migration of data. You don't have to care about any kind of maintenance or buying any kind of hardware, because it's running on ECHA environments, and every time there's a new version, we will be updated. So you will always run the latest version of Euclid available. You work online. That means that you don't have to install anything. You can easily share the work with your colleagues. You can have multiple user accounts linked into the same Euclid. You can even delegate access to your consultants. I'm going to show that later on today as well. Security. Everyone here is cloud, and you always take one step back and think, oh, is it secure? Well, DECA Cloud is not like other clouds. We have a special cloud. It's called private cloud, which means that we own the servers that runs the cloud. It is not accessed by public access. So it runs on the same server stack that runs ReachIT, that runs R4BP. So in that sense, it has the same level of security. Of course, we also encrypt the communication like we do in all other tools. And we do regulatory security audits to make sure that all our IT components is up to the state of play for a secure system. Backups, we take backups of the data. Every time you close your instance, we back the data up. So we have a copy if something happens to the system. We can always get your data back. We have a help desk support dedicated. You can, directly from the cloud, you can create a help desk ticket. And we have a process for handling them. We can also in the future build more effective help support since your application is running inside the cloud and via the internet. One of the things that we've been drumming out quite heavily for the 2018 deadline is the use of consultants. We know that a lot of SMEs is going to struggle with preparing their registration dossiers. So we make sure that the tools that we're building can fit for a decent collaboration between SMEs and consultants. So what we want to make sure is that the benefit for the cloud for an SME is that ECHA takes care of the infrastructure. We have a simpler interface as mentioned. We reduce the risk of data loss because now the consultant doesn't have to send the data back and forth to you via email. They can already put it into the cloud for you. By working anywhere at any time, you can share the access with the consultant. But it's not only a one-way street. Also, the consultant benefits from using the cloud. In addition to the SME advantages, they can kind of give you more value for money. So now, not only creating the dossier, but they also give you a IUCLID where they can store the dossier and the data for you to use later on, which makes the service much more transparent and interactive if they wish to use it. And we also give them the right to use the trial environment for organizing IUCLID trainings. So we have been in contact with quite many consultancy companies and allowed them to use the trial for organizing trainings. That was the difference between IUCLID and IUCLID Cloud. Now over to Alexis for the main functionalities of ReachIT.
Thank you, Tommy. Hello, my name is Alexis Quintana Sainz. I work with ReachIT in the ReachIT team here in ECHA. So a little bit of refresh of what ReachIT is and how it looks like. So before you start really with the training for today. So if you have logged in ReachIT before, this is how it looks like, the first page. We have marked here in red the main sections. So the menu on the left, top left, and you see the three main sections in the middle of the page, the submit a dossier. So the main goal is that you actually create a dossier in IUCLID or in ReachIT, as you will see later today, and that you submit a dossier for the 2018 Reach deadline. We have in the middle a section called tasks. Tasks are all these things that you have to do by a certain deadline. For example, if you receive an invoice after sending your dossier, you will receive a task. If you by any chance fail business rules, you will also receive a task telling you what to do in order to fix the error. Or also if you fail TCC, you also receive a task. And we have the last section on the right that is substances. We have gone and compared with the version that it was 1.5 years ago, if you still remember that one. So we have gone to a more substance-centric view. So if you go there and you by any chance have pre-register or register sulfuric acid. You go there, find sulfuric acid, and you see all the regulatory processes where sulfuric acid was involved from this account. So you will see pre-registrations, inquiries, registrations, and in the future, if you submit an authorization, you will also see that. On the top of the page, we have the messages. So this is all different kind of information that is being sent to you, which is different from the task. So it's just for information. You don't need to do anything about it. And we have also a quick search by number. For example, you can write the submission number or the pre-registration number, and then you will go directly to those sections. If you click in the top left, the menu, you will see all the different things that you can do in ReachAT. As I said before, the submit, so you can submit all those different things, application for authorization, classification and labeling notification, that's a user report. So all those things you can do it in here in ReachAT. In the middle of the page, we have the search section with different searches, for example, by reference number, submissions, substances. And we have the joint submission. Pay attention to this section because later today you will have to join a joint submission. So that's the place where you have to go. Okay, remember at least that from this page. And then on the right side of the page, we have the managed company with company information, company size. Remember this also. Contacts, email notification settings. We will explain about that in the advanced section, and some other things. To help you, probably you realize that 1.5 years ago, all the ReachAT user manuals disappeared. Well, they didn't disappear. They went directly to ReachAT. So we have 3 ways of helping you to submit the dossiers. We have the topic help. You see those small question marks that you will see in ReachAT. You can click there and see what this is about. Also, while you are submitting your dossier, we have some checklists in the wizards with information about what kind of things you need to have in hand before continuing. So this is good when you are submitting a dossier. Go there, check what you need to have it ready, and then mark in a piece of paper or somewhere or mentally. And then we have the page help. So the page help you will be able to access by clicking in the small booklet that you will find in the top right section of ReachAT. So even today, so if you are a little bit lost in the beginning, go there and check what this, for example, each page means. You can change to your preferred EU language. So by default it's in English, but you can change it. For changing it, so from the main page of ReachAT, you go to the user name. In this case is my account, Alexis QS. You go there, and then in the next page, you will be able to change the language to your preferred EU language. So use that functionality as well if you think it's easier to understand in your mother tongue. And that's it. I think we are going to soon start the exercise.
Quick presentation of the exercise, and after that, let's start working. So what we found is that it's easier to make an exercise and to make it more interesting for everyone is to set the scene, to make everyone in the same boat. So forget about the companies you're working for now. Forget about the substances that you need to register. That's not what you're going to need to do today. Today, it's a Tuesday morning. You all have just figured out that you actually like mountain climbing. As you can see in front here, we have gears. I mean, this is specifically mountain gear that you might need to succeed today. So it's Tuesday morning. You're looking out your office window. You look at the snowfall because you're all sitting in Helsinki. You're dreaming about the mountain hike that you have planned for the next week. Okay? Everyone still with me? No more private companies. No more private substances. You're all working. Now you're dreaming about going hiking. You're a REACH manager in a medium-sized company in Finland, and your company is manufacturing a substance with a very complex name. I will just call it PGMA for easier discussion. And you manufacture it in 10 to 100 tons per year. So your dream gets crashed. Your boss enters the room and asks for the status of PGMA. Well, you tell your boss that, of course, we pre-registered in 2008, so we need to register it by mid-2018. You've been spending last half a year discussing with the chief, and everything has been successful, and you're going to join the joint submission as a member. You tell your boss that you're going to submit this when you get back from your trip using the REACH IT online tool, because it's easy enough, and since we agree with everything the lead submits, that's going to be a nice flow. Well, your boss doesn't really like risks. He's one of these people who looks at you twice and then says, are you sure you don't want to do this before you go to the hike? I heard about people who don't get back from hikes. So he asks you if you could do it before. Well, it's Tuesday. You think out quickly and say, yeah, I think I can do it before. So you say, fine, I'll do that for you. I'll please you, and I'll finalize it before I go. And that's more or less what the left side of the room is going to do today. So now you can hold on. Now I'm talking to the rest of the side of the room. This is the intermediate and advanced section of the exercise. You already just fetched a cup of coffee, rolled up your sleeves, and you started working, and then your boss comes running back into your office again. He reminds you that your company has some data that needs to be submitted outside of the joint submission. You can't share everything with your other competitors, he shouts, and then he leaves your office. So you adapt to the order, you change your initial plan, and decide to create your dossier using the IUCLID Cloud instead. You already subscribed in the autumn, so you have it nicely available for your work, and you find it to be the best option because it's easy accessible over the internet and it's always up to date. That's the exercise. Now, in order to make it feel and not forget about your plan for the weekend, you make a plan for your work, and that's to reach the summit. Personally, I like the pun with reach the summit, but that's up to you if you like it or not. So, as I mentioned, we're going to do it with three different parts. We have the green part, which is the REACH IT online, which is the beginner part. The REACH IT, and we have a red part, which is the IUCLID Cloud part, which is intermediate. And then we have a dotted black one, which is an extended IUCLID Cloud part for the advanced users. You don't have to decide in the beginning if you go for advanced or intermediate. They have a common flow in the beginning, and then depending on your speed, you can choose to also do the advanced part. Now, the part for the beginner will start from the bottom of the mountain by joining a joint submission. You're going to follow up the easy part by, in the REACH IT online, define your substance identity. After the substance identity, you will define your analytical information. You will describe your uses. You will validate your data. And then at some point, you're going to submit the dossier. And then in the end, you're going to have a registration number. So this is a quite simple part, and you will be using the REACH IT online. The more intermediate part is going to go a little bit off to the left, doing the same steps, joining the joint submission, defining the substance identity, doing the analytical information, describing the uses, using the validation assistant inside the cloud to validate the data. Once everything is okay, create the dossier, submit it, and in the end get the registration number. The advanced starts from number 5, so after you validated the data for the first time, you go off to the left a bit to look at the nice scenery there. You do an opt-out of the CNL. You do a quick PBT assessment. You put different guidance of safe use than the lead has provided, and you provide your own chemical safety report for the substance. And then you revalidate, export the dossier, and submit it for getting the registration number later on. So this advanced part you can choose depending on time and feeling when you get to after the first set of validation.
Hello. So, as we are going, it seems that everybody's doing very, very well. I'm going to show how to join the joint submission for those that maybe are a little bit behind, which I don't think they are. So for that, I was saying that you go to the joint submission section, and then you go join existing. So after having the conversation with the lead, they provide you with the joint submission name and the security token. This is what you found in your instructions. So I will copy the joint submission name. And together with the token, it will give us the access to the joint submission. We go to the next step. First thing here is to assign a contact to the joint submission. This contact will appear in the joint submission page, and it will be visible for all the members of the joint submission. So we have a contact there already. I assign it, and I can continue. Once I review that the information indicated here is correct, I am now part of the joint submission. By clicking in the joint submission name, I will be taken to the joint submission page. And this is how the joint submission page looks from the member perspective. In the left part of the page is the information about the joint submission, so with the substance, the joint submission information. So we see that the joint submission it has a full registration type, and we have also the name of the joint submission. The third column, it says the joint submission coverage. Right now, it's empty because the lead hasn't submitted the joint submission yet. I mean, it hasn't submitted the lead dossier yet. And in the fourth column, we have the lead registrant contact information. So this is the information about the lead, about the coverage of the joint submission in general. And on the right-hand side, we have the information about our own dossier. We see that we haven't submitted anything. Of course, we just joined. And I see my joint submission contact that I can edit. So in the future, if some member of your company changes position or something, and then you need to change the contact information of the joint submission, you just go to the joint submission page and change it. On the bottom of the page, we also see the list of all the members that are part of the joint submission. So we have already 109 members. So I guess that almost everybody, or even everybody, has already joined. So we are 109 members in this joint submission. And we see the company name, the joint submission contact. So in case you need to contact the members of the joint submission, here as well you have that information. We have seen that the lead dossier hasn't submitted, so then we cannot submit our own dossier until the member has submitted. Until the lead has submitted, thank you. That doesn't prevent us to create the member dossier. So that's why we are working in this side of the room. They are working with the cloud to create the dossier. And in the other side of the room, we are creating the dossier online. So even if the lead hasn't submitted, we can create and submit online. Well, we cannot finalize the step. We cannot submit it yet, but we can work on the dossier online dossier as well. So this is where we are right now. We can continue with the exercise, the cloud people and the online dossier people. And if you have questions, just raise your hand. We will continue with the substance identification.
All right, everyone. It's going great. You're all doing very well. We're going to try something specific now. So we're going to show how to create the substance identity in the online. And before you all panic, we're going to lock your screens. Now, why do we do this? Well, that means so that the people who are not using the online have a quick glance on how it's supposed to be done. And then we do vice versa when we show how to do it in the cloud, so the people who are doing the Reach IT online will see it. We will try to make this gap as short as possible. So we have pre-filled information, so we just quickly show how it's supposed to be done. And I'm giving you, Alex, 3 to 4 minutes max to show it, the substance identity in the online. All right?
Okay, I will talk quickly, but hopefully clear. So this is how it looks, the dossier, the Reach IT online, for those that are working with the cloud. First thing, it was to choose if it was a monoconstituent or if it was a well-defined substance or a UVCV. We chose that it was a well-defined substance. And we had to fill some information. So we had to put the structural formula, and we have to put the molecular weight. So the molecular weight, it's been added here, and the structural formula, so you just upload an image of it. So the next step, there is not much to do, is just to review the information that we did in the previous step. And then we go to the trade name and other identifiers. So we are not adding here any trade name or any other identifiers. However, what we needed is to put some analytical information. If this information is not here, you see, I will remove it. So we get this red message that it tells us that we have to provide analytical information to cover at least one quantification and also one identification result. So this is done by clicking in the plus for analytical information. We just choose the purpose of analysis. We put identification and quantification in one go. Then the analysis type, we use a chromatography test to do this. And then we have to upload the document. So we put the document explaining the identification and quantification. Once we click in save, you see the red message has disappeared. And then we can go to the next one, which is the substance composition. In here, we had to put the degree of purity. And so this is done in here. We put from 98 to 100. And we also had to put the composition of the constituents. Very easily also to do that, we put the concentration range from 98 to 100. In case there are impurities in the exercise, you don't have, but I will add one. You just put, for example, if one impurity is water, I start typing water, and it appears there. And then I put the concentration range of water, that it will be from 0 to 2. And then I can continue to the next step. Next step is not done yet, but you see, if you don't clean this red message in here, at least one role in the supply chain must be provided, I cannot continue to the next step. So the business rules, the TCC rules are visible here. You cannot continue unless you clean them up. So now Mark will present the same thing.
Yep. Okay, for the IUCLID Cloud users, it's quite similar to what you just saw, but a bit of a different route. So on the screen now is the IUCLID Cloud dashboard. You would have first gone to Get Started in the guided dossier preparation tool. You would have added your substance name. And then you would have said that you're a member and that you've got a tonnage band of 10 to 100 tons. And you would have clicked Finish. Once you've done that, you would enter this main sort of task screen. And for substance identification, this has a specific task, and it's called substance identification. So if you click into there, these are the 3 main tasks or subtasks under substance identification. If you go to the first document, so you'd put the substance name in. Then you would go to the reference substance, which I've pre-filled in here for you. So I've put in the inventory number, I've given the reference substance name, I've put in the UPAC name and the CAS number as well. You may have noticed that when searching for the inventory number, this was an automatic number that appears for you once you put this number here in, because all the inventory numbers are stored in UCLID Cloud. Then I went to type of substance, said that it was a monoconstituent. I put its origin as organic, and I put my role in the supply chain as a manufacturer. Then for the composition, I've also pre-filled this out. So I added a name. I added that it was a legal entity composition because this is a member dossier, not a lead. If it was a lead, it would be a boundary composition. I stated that the state or form of the substance is a liquid. For the degree of purity, like with the online dossier, I put the range there. And then for the constituents, I've also added one here. So I've added the reference substance that is exactly the same as in section 1.1 because it's a monoconstituent, and I've also added the typical concentration range. I can add impurities like Alexis did, for instance, but I won't for the sake of time. And then I go to analytical information, which is the last part of the substance identification. So here in this list for analytical determination, I add the purpose of the analysis, which is identification and quantification. I add the analysis type, and I also add the analytical information document that we have on the training environment for you, and also noted that this was results and not methods. So that's all for the SID for the cloud.
Very good. That was a quick view on how to do the steps on substance identity, and my colleagues were very effective. They also showed the analytical information at the same time, so that saves us that time. We will first present how to do the uses in the ReachIT Online, and after that we will show you how to do the uses in the cloud. So sit back and relax.
Let's go for the next steps. So we had filled the substance analytical information and also the constituents, the substance composition. So let's go to the supply chain. First we have to, as you are seeing here, there is a red message, at least one role in the supply chain must be provided. So let's do that. In the exercise, it says that we are manufacturer. So we just click manufacturer there. And we remove that error message, and it says, well, now at least, if we click here, save, we get another one. Manufacturers must specify at least one production site. So for that, we have here this section, manufacturer or own use sites for your substance. And in order to add the site, we just need to click in this arrow here and provide our own details. So now we can say which is our manufacturing site. Let's call it Helsinki. Let's say that we are in Ananka 218, which is Eka. And Helsinki, and the country is Finland. So we can save it, and now we are allowed to continue to the next step, which is the administrative information. In here we have to add one tonnage band and the phasing status as well. So in the exercise says from 10 to 100 tons. So we added here. In this version of the online dossier, you can even claim fee waiver in case you submit 1 to 10 tons. So this is new since November. And the phasing status, so we are saying that it's a phasing substance. We save it, and then we can continue to the CNL inventory. This section we can opt out in the online dossier as well. We can provide our own dossiers, our own CNL classification, for example, in case the the composition affects it. But we can also agree with the CNL provided by the lead of the joint submission. In this case, we are going to do that. And then we go to the user section. So as you see, there is a message there, at least one user and manufacturer should be provided, or a justification for no users reported should be specified. So let's go. We have to fill the manufacturer user and also an additional one. Let's start with the manufacturer. We see when we open the manufacturer, it tells us what we have to fix, which means, which in this case is to add one contributing activity technique for the environment and one for the workers. And within these sections, we have to include some more information. This is appearing in the instructions. So let's start giving a name. And we have to include one technique, one contributing activity for the environment. We give the name, which is manufacture in contained system, no water involved. And the environmental release category is the only one that is available there. Okay? Additionally, we have to indicate a contributing activity technique for the workers. We are going to call it closed manufacturing process. And the process category is the first one as well. Okay? There is more information that you can add. For example, in this exercise, we have several contributing activities for the workers. In this example, I'm only going to show the first one because it takes time to fill and it's exactly the same information. So now I can save it, but still, yes, for the manufacturers, I have to add one site. I forgot about that, but it's telling me manufacturers must link at least one production site. So then I go to the, let me see where I find it. Here, sites. And it's the one that I indicated in the previous page. I click save, and I clean that error message. So now I have to indicate one other use, which it will be for the uses at industrial sites. Once again, take my papers, and I will add the use of vehicle cleaning product. Then the name of activity or technique. And it will be in here. So, automated water-based washing of large vehicles. And the environmental release category is the 4. Then also we need a contributing activity for the workers. And the release category, the process category, that is the 8B. Additionally, we have to say the product category in this case, which is the 35. There is a list of product categories. We find the one that is relevant for us is washing and cleaning products. And the sector of use, which is the 17, which is general manufacturing. Additionally, we have to indicate the technical function. In this case, it's surfactant. You see that there is a quite long list. But if you start typing surfactant, it appears there already. And we also need to fill the subsequent service life relevant for this use. We say no because we are not having a product. Once we have filled that information, we are done. We have cleared all the error messages, and we can continue to the next step, which is the user's advice against, and then the use information, but we will fill this later. So now Mark can do the same in the other two.
Thank you, Alexis. So if you'd gone away for some time from IUCLID Cloud, you may have been logged out because your instance went idle. So when you log back in and you see the widget here, you can rejoin the substance you were preparing by simply clicking on Continue. So this is the main task page again. So I will go through some of the things that Alexis has shown you on the online dossiers. So first of all, for the estimated quantities, you'll see that I've already have 3 documents in this task. That's because I've already pre-filled out some of the information here. So as you can see, I have 3 estimated quantities documents. These are for the respective years in your scripts. And for the sites, I've also pre-filled out some information. So you can see I have a document already created here. And if I go inside, you can see that I have linked to site. So I have the site name, the legal entity owner, as well as the contact information. I will just go through the steps to show you them. Okay, so now I want to add my manufacturer information. I haven't got any documents here. There is no number indicator. So I need to provide this information for the first time. If I already had, for instance, from a lead dossier or data set information on the manufacturer, I could use existing information and copy that information over, as long as that data set is in my IUCLID database. But I'm providing information from scratch, so I will select Provide Information. So I first choose a registration notification status. I will choose above 10 tons. I will add a name. And then, because you're using a web user interface, you can use the Control F keys at any time to navigate your way around the document. So this is quite a large document. So if I want to find the contributing activity, I type in contributing here, for instance, and then I can scroll through the document for this keyword, and I can go straight to the field. Of course, this is only if you know the field name, but it's a nice shortcut. So I will put the contributing name here. As well as the ERC. Next one's for the workers. So it's a closed manufacturing process. And this is also quite a large list of procs available. So if I want to quickly search for one I'm looking for, I can simply press 1, which will search for all the entries with the number 1 inside, and I can quickly find the proc. Okay. So I will go to the end of the tasks. And back to the list of my subtasks, you'll see now that I have 1 document created under manufacture. Again, for the users' industrial sites, I haven't got any documents there, so I need to provide information. And again, this is quite similar to before. So I put my use name. I can also add some further descriptions of the use. So for instance, spraying and rinsing. You'll notice that this is a rich text field, so it gives you the opportunity to actually change the fonts or alignment of the information you put here. And I'll also search again for the contributing keyword to look for the contributing activity and fill in the relevant information. There's quite a lot of environmental release categories here, so I will just put 4 in to filter out the rest of them and select the ERG4. And again, for the proc, I can put 8B, and I can directly find the proc I want. So then I'm looking next for the product category used. And again, I've used the Control F function just to quickly find this field. And I can also filter these down to number 35. And the same for the sector use, I can search for 17. And this will appear for me in the list. And next, it's the technical function of the substance during use. So we've got here the surfactant, and I can start typing that word in, and it will appear in the list for me. And finally, the subsequent service life relevant for this use. That's a little bit further down here. And I'm selecting no. So that's the uses, but just to, I've seen that some of you have been having a little bit of trouble navigating around the wizard approach. So when you're in a document, you can see all the subtasks listed down here. You can go to any of them by selecting the hyperlink. So for instance, if I want to go back to estimated quantities, I can select this and go right back to my estimated quantities. Also, if I go back to the main page, you will, just for your information, we'll see additional information here, which you'll be using for the more advanced session a bit later, and also where you can validate and create your dossier. That's just to help you navigate around a little bit. Thank you.
So now you can continue with the exercise, and yeah.
We're going to start the second session with a quick presentation by Mark, which is running the validation assistant in the cloud. We're going to skip the validate part for the online and show it together with the data submission. But Mark, please go ahead.
Thank you. Hello everyone, hope you had a good lunch. So in front of you there is the main task screen in the guided dossier tool. If I scroll down, in the Finalize Your Dossier section, I have the Validate and Create Dossier options. If I validate, I should have an error. Yes, I do. So for my sites, I haven't linked a manufacturer document to my site. So now if I just go to the hyperlink for the sites document that I've already created and go to the next section, I can then link my manufacturer to the site. I can save it. I can view the document if I so wish. And when I go back, I will automatically go to the validation report if I hadn't just clicked it twice, of course. So let's go back to the validate button. And now my submission check has been validated. I also have 2 quality checks, but they're not mandatory. They're just to check the quality of your data. If you're still seeing an error there and you think you fixed it, you can always press revalidate just to double check that indeed you have fixed it or you haven't fixed it. If you do not see a hyperlink to the document in the validation report, it means the document hasn't actually been created yet in your Euclid database. So it would mean you need to go to the relevant task and actually create the document at hand.
So this time we are not going to stop you from continuing your exercise because we see that you are really, really focused. But we will show you in the big screen how it looks like. We stopped in the use information, sorry, in the uses before. So after the uses comes the uses advised against. In this exercise, we are not saying anything about that. I mean, we don't need to indicate any use advice against for this exercise. But then we go to the use information. And once again, we have to clear some errors here. So as a minimum, we have to indicate estimated quantities for 1 year. So we just click in plus, and then we will indicate here the last 3 years, because for phasing, we recommend that you indicate the last 3 years. And if you want to watch this in the screen, so if you click in the button which says PC, the one close to the microphone, then you will be able to see it on your screen. So for those that want to focus with this in the screen, the others you can continue working. It's up to you. So for 2015, let's say that we manufacture 4 tons. If we want to add the 2016, easily, by now I guess that you know how this works. And from 2017, good, we are growing in this. And then we can go to the assessment reports. So we go here, and in this case, we don't need to add any information. However, we don't need to add any information because the lead has provided this information on our behalf. They have provided a chemical safety report and the report for uses advised against, and the guidance of safe use. So in this case, we don't need to indicate anything. But that is always if you have agreed with your lead registrant that they will submit the CSR and the guidance on safe use on your behalf. Otherwise, you have to submit this information by yourself. In this case, the lead, we have agreed with the lead, so we don't need to submit anything. And we go to the confidentiality claims. Here you can claim confidential, the degree of purity, tonnage ban, registration number, company name, UPAC, different confidentiality claims, the same as you would be able to do when you submit a Euclid dossier. Once again, for the purpose of this exercise, you don't need to create a confidentiality claim. And remember, every time you claim confidential something, you have to give a justification why you are doing it. So once we are done with that, we get a dossier preview. So with all the information that we have filled today, if you suddenly realize that when checking the supply chains that you wrote that you are the importer instead of manufacturer, you can just go to that section and change it. So quick review of that, or detailed review of that, and then you can go to the next page, which is the submission to REACH. As I have logged out from the morning, which one was I using? So even if I have been like, it asks me to log in again, but all the information that I have filled during these last minutes, so it's being saved there. So this page, the only thing I need to indicate is a purchase order in case my financial department requires that every invoice that has to be paid has a purchase order or not. So before paying an invoice before submitting this, check with your financial department if they require a purchase order or not. And the other thing that I have to put is a contact person for this dossier. This is in case ECHA has to contact you for whatever reason regarding this. And then we go to continue confirmation. We review that this information is correct or not. And here, we might realize that, remember, in the beginning of the exercise, we were telling you that you were a medium company. So you come here and you said, oops, I haven't updated this information. I'm actually a large. So this would be the time when you would actually change the company size in here. How many have changed the company size here? 3 people. Okay, well done. So when you receive the invoice today, you receive like non-SME, that means large, and nobody reacted. and you pay the invoice. So, so it's good that before you submit the dossier, you check that the company size is correct. So, in any case, I'm going to do the same as you. I didn't change the company size, but I will go forward. And then I got the preliminary submission number. And from here, by refreshing, you will see that these steps on the right, the submission process steps, are being passed. The pre-validation is when we check that that you haven't sent any virus, and also we check that the version of Euclid is the correct one. If you use the online or if you use the cloud, you will pass that because we keep updating the versions of Euclid. If you have Euclid 5 still in your computer, you will fail this because you have to submit Euclid 6 dossier. Then the business rules checks, where is a set of administrative checks. For example, if you are within a sulfuric acid joint submission, we expect that you submit a sulfuric acid dossier. If you submit other dossier, then you will fail business rules. The TCC rules is where we check that the information that is required by the regulation is there. And then we'll get the financial completeness check. You will get an invoice. It takes some time, so I will show maybe later. And the invoice, it will appear in the task. So you will get a task where the invoice is being sent. And on the bottom of the page, you also will see a section called key documents. So if you have submitted and you have passed all this, you can go to this page and check that the key documents, the invoice, for example, is there, and also the registration number is there. And now I think that Mark wanted to take over.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexis. Okay. So for the IUCLID Cloud, you had some additional things to do other than the mandatory first stage. So there was some classification and labeling to do, some PBT assessments, etc. So I'll take you a few of these things now. I'm in the main task page for the guided dossier tool. I'm going to fill in the classification and labeling information. Now you would have noticed that I cannot access this via the main task page, so I'd go to switch to dataset view. This would take me to the regular dataset of Euclid. Those of you who have used the regular Euclid application will be familiar with this. So if I then create a new document under GHS, add a name for the GHS, and put it as self-classification, and add a related composition that I've already created. And then I can save this if I wish. And then I need to add some classification information. In the script, it was asking me to put some classification information for the flammable liquid, so I'll do that now. So if I use the Control and F, and I search for flammable liquids, I can then input some information about the hazard category and also the hazard statement. Now, here, the third box you see down, reason for no classification, is still having a value. So here we will need to actually remove the value because there is data, there isn't data lacking. So I can just press the X there and it removes the value. So now I've added some classification information for the flammable liquids. I will save that. I won't go into the other parts of the classification, but let's go to the flashpoint. So I'm in a GHS document at the moment. If I just press back, I will then go back to my main dataset view. This can be quite sort of unwieldy and large, so the quickest way to actually start navigating around this is to actually go to one of the sections here on the left-hand side. So for instance, if I want to go to a flashpoint, I go to physical chemical properties, and then open up my flashpoint document. I'd already started creating this a bit earlier, so there's some information there already. It's going to be a key study. The reliability is quite high, without restriction, and it's a guideline study as well. So now I want to give some information about the data source. So I will give some information on the reference. I can create a new reference here. It's going to be a publication. And the title of the publication was Inventively Chemistry. And the author is J. Adrich. The year is 2000 of the publication. And the bibliographic source is Adrich from the journal called Chem, volume 38. So now that we've done the data access, we can go to the test guideline, which is here. We can add what guideline we were actually following. So for instance, EU method A9. And we should also select a test method too. There isn't any specified, so we can just choose one. And then we add a test material. We already have one in the database, so I can just select that. And then for the results and discussion, this is a key result, so I flag it as a key result. And in the flashpoint, I can put the 45 Celsius. And for the atmospheric pressure, I can do this. And I can also make it circa too. So let's save that one. So to go back to the actual guided dossier tool itself, if I quickly want to go back to the original wizard you were in, I just need to go to the top button here. It will send me to the top of the data set, and then click here, the Reach 2018 dossier preparation. This will take me back to the main task screen you've seen a few times now. Now for the opt-out information, this is already included as part of your tasks or additional tasks in the tool. So if I just select here and provide information, I can start saying which information I want to opt out from the joint submission. So here I can select the documents I want to opt out. If, for instance, I want to opt out from GHS and Flashpoint, I can select them too. I can give the justification, and then they have been opted out. I think it would take too much time to go through everything, so maybe I leave it there. But if you have any other questions about IUCLID Cloud, you can ask them during the advanced Q&A session after this main training.
Go for dossier creation and submission?
Yep, sure. So I'll show you also the dossier creation. So I'm back on the main task page. I go to finalize the dossier, and I can create the dossier. If I have any errors, it will actually tell me before I'm allowed to actually submit it. I will say that the lead is providing the chemical safety report and the guidance on safe use on my behalf. It's a phase-in status substance. Now I can create the dossier. So it's telling me here that I have validation errors and that I should probably fix them before I actually go to create the dossier. So I can, for instance, go here to fix the errors, or I can continue with dossier creation. Let's see, out of interest, what errors I have. I have lots. Hopefully, once these have been fixed, then you can continue to create the dossier. So if I did the same action as before and I create dossier, I can continue with the dossier creation. and open the dossier. When submitting this dossier to Reach IT, I would then export this dossier, save it onto my desktop, and then submit it to Reach IT and upload it there. In real life, we've actually made the synchronization a little bit smoother, so you'd be able to actually claim any Euclid Cloud dossiers directly from your Euclid Cloud into Reach IT, so you wouldn't need to export the dossier in between. But maybe we can show that a bit later during the Q&A session. Thank you.
We come from here now, submit the dossier. So we are in the joint submission page. So we go to submit a Euclid dossier. And as we were doing this from the joint submission page, the name of the joint submission is already pre-filled, so you don't need to do anything else than continue and to upload the dossier. This is the most difficult part of today. To put the, and here you see there are two options. Either you do drag and drop or click to select the file. In this case, we will use this. In your environment, in the production environment, you will just click select from Euclid Cloud, and then it will take the dossier from there. So you don't need to export the Euclid Cloud dossier to your desktop. But in this case, as we are in a training environment, this is not synchronized today, so we just do a drag and drop to select the file. Which was? Where is it?
Go to downloads. You should be there. The very first one.
The first?
Name dossier. Very first on the list.
Oh, yeah. So we select the Euclid file. And we just continue. We choose a contact person for this dossier. Assign. And we continue to the confirmation. Again, we didn't change the company size. We are still large. And we go to the preliminary submission number, and then we will, for sure, today fail some business rules, as you saw. So if you run the validation assistant and you are failing some rules, do not submit the dossier, because you are also going to fail in Reach IT. So make sure that you pass the validation assistant before, that you correct all the errors before submitting the dossier. This will take some time. We wanted to show how it looks like when you fail, for example, business rules, because you will get the instructions on what to correct. You will see it here. Let's see how long does it take. It might take some minutes. So yeah, you can continue what you were doing maybe. And in a couple of minutes, we have only 10 minutes left for this, and then we will go to the questions and answers.
Let's start closing it up. Could you, Francois, switch to the thing?
No. I got it. I just failed it. First time I'm happy failing business rules.
First time. Don't believe him.
So, no, first time I'm happy failing business rules. I failed many times business rules when testing Reach IT. So this is how it looks like, business rules check. So you see we have failed 2. It explains here what are the business rules failures. And additionally, if we go to the tasks, no, the business rules, they don't appear here actually. Only the TCC failures appear in here. The business rules failures appear in the submission report. So you just go here, read the how to correct, and once you correct it, you submit it again. If you have questions about these, the failures, you always can contact ECA help desk and ask, I don't understand what is written here. And we will always try to help you. So that's it.
Very good. Let's see what's happening then. Okay, so we've gone through the creation of the dossier. We've gone through the submission of the dossier. What Alexis was covering is that what happens after you submit the dossier is that it goes into the machinery of ECA in something that we call to the submission pipeline. It starts with the upload of the file. After that, it goes through a set of pre-processing, so wire scanning, validation that the file is of the correct format, etc. After that, the business rules are checked to make sure that it's the enough data is there, and if that the dossier comes in the correct context. That's what Alexis just failed. If it comes in the correct context and has enough basic information to start the process for real, this is happening. And then it's split up into two separate parts. There is the invoicing part, and then there's the technical completeness check part. This red X means that you fail, and if you fail, you're going to be notified for it. So in the invoice part, of course, you will be receiving an invoice. And from the technical completeness check, you might be, if you fail it, you get a notification that you failed, but if everything is fine, you come to the overall completeness check. Of course, the payment of the invoice takes quite some time, but when that's done, that's there. After the overall completeness check, depending on how you succeeded, if you paid the invoice in time, and if your technical completeness check was correct, you go to the decision making, which is then quite Boolean. It's either positive or negative. And for a positive one, you will receive a registration letter. And that's what the last task is about. How many of you have not yet submitted? Very good. I can't see two are still haven't submitted. Very good. Judith, how many have in the other room have not submitted? Oh, no. Not. Okay, very good, very good. Could you go and so help her to submit while we start to wrap up? That's very good. So if you look at the tasks on the list, did you all see your invoice? Yes, for those who hasn't seen their invoice, they could try to find it in the system. You could also, if you didn't already read your registration letter, you can search and find for that. Have a look at the joint submission object. In the latest update of Reach IT, you can now see what the other members, which annexes the other members are relying on in the joint submission. So you can look at that information. And then you can also look at the substance page and the message page.
In the morning, we only had the lead. So now we go to the joint submission. We see that the lead has submitted. We see it in green. And we see that we also have submitted and we have a reference number. And if we go to the members of the joint submission, we see that we are 130 members in this joint submission. And this is the information that is visible by all the members. So the company, the joint submission contact, and the highest data requirements. So these data requirements are the highest data requirements, Annex 6 to 10, related to the last successful submission of each of the members. And also we can see if the member has opt-out or not. So those that say no is because they haven't opt-out for any information. And those that they say yes, so are probably the ones that were using the IUCLID Cloud and they decided to do the opt-outs. So this information is also visible here. Additionally, we see if for the guidance of safe use and if for the chemical safety report, we see if, for example, in this case it says not joined. So that means that this company has submitted the guidance of safe use themselves. And for the chemical safety report, they are relying on the chemical safety report that is being submitted by the lead. So this is the information that is shown here. In order to see the, we were talking about finding the invoice. So the best way to do it is if you go to the submission number, and we go to the submission report. On the bottom of the page, we have the key documents, and we see that we got the invoice, that we can just open it and take a quick look how it looks like. 10 to 100 tons, large. So when you receive the invoice, it's always good to check that you have actually registered what you wanted to register before paying the invoice. And we also have received the final submission report, which is the registration letter, decision on your registration, the tonnage band between 10 and 100 tons per year. Registration date is 30th of January. This date is the date when the submission was submitted, when you passed actually business rules. If you go to the reference number, which is on the top of this submission, this is the reference number for this submission. From here, you can go to view the co-registrants, you can go to the joint submission, and you have the key documents as well. And down here, you have the reference number history. In this case, we only have one because we just submitted an initial dossier. But if you have done several updates, you will see all the history of your updates from the reference number page. And quickly, regarding on the company size, so what you could have done when starting is go to the managed company, clicking company size, and if by default it would be, if you create an account now, by default it will be large. So if you want to update your company size, you will have to go through a set of information here, how to declare your company size or not, and you will go through a set of steps. So if I choose that I'm a medium, I will have to indicate a contact person for this company size exercise in a way. So in case our finance department has to contact somebody, so it's good to indicate somebody who knows about these issues, about these things in your company. And then a set of questions, and as well as some kind of information regarding how to indicate if your company size is medium, large, or small. So, and also upload some document about your company structure. So this is how the company size is being updated nowadays in Reach IT. So, yep.
Very good. That means that we are at the end of the exercise. And you have to congratulate yourself for reaching the top. Again, a play with word when it says reached it, IT, whatever you want. Please read the very important words mentioned by Sir Edmund Hillary, the first guy who climbed Mount Everest, where he tells you that it's not about conquering the mountains, it's about conquering yourself. So, a quick wrap up before we go to the advanced session. Discussing with the invoice payment, we had around 90 something invoices created. So we have the same number of registrations. So I'm not sure. Some of you might have failed business rules or not concluded the work by going to one-to-one. That's not important. I think we have a success rate of over 90%, which is good enough for me. If you're happy, so I'm happy. Alex has already asked the question about how many of you remember to change the company size. In the end, it wasn't many. It was something that we realized quite late in the exercise, that we set it to be medium so that you could use the cloud, but we didn't change the Reach IT. So we wanted to see how many people actually remember it, and I think it's a good exercise, because from now on you definitely will remember it. You will check your size. If you are not large, you will check it before you submit. What at least we consider that this exercise proves is that if you have the data available and if you plan your work in detail, creating a registration dossier under Reach is not impossible at all. All of you did it under 2-3 hours. For some of you, it was actually most probably the first time you created a registration dossier, which is quite impressive as such. I mean, everyone is running around saying it's very, very, very tough to create it. Well, in the end, using the IT tool is not the problem. It's the generation and the gathering of the data which is the problem. Sorry. We agree, definitely. So what was stated here is that if you're a lead, of course, the complexity grows with more than double. It goes much higher. That's the story, but in the end, it's the same task. It gets more complex and much broader, but it's the same concept. Now, what we hope is that you've seen and learned something today that will help you in succeeding with the 2018 deadline. I at least have felt that the whole day has been very relaxed, and I've seen that you've been working very well. Personally, I've been very happy about the fact that the newly created guided dossier support didn't cause any kind of problems. It actually worked as we had planned it to work. So that's very well. And I would potentially after 4 or during the advanced session, if you have any comments on the use of the cloud, we would like to discuss about that as well. So without further ado, do we take some questions related to okay? If anyone has any questions related to the exercise, we can take a couple of those now, and after that we move over to the advanced session of the IT tools. People sitting in the Margot Wallström room cannot unfortunately ask directly. They can either walk over here or ask someone of the ECA people to bring the question over. You asked the question by pushing the picture of the guy that speaks.
My name is Sven Peter Nygaard. I wonder, what is the definition of company size?
The definition of company size is, you saw it when Alexis was showing it. So there is a EU Commission description of company size. So it has to do with the yearly turnover, the amount of headcount, and the total amount of investments done by the owner group of the company. It's quite a complex algorithm, but when you look in Reach IT under the setting your company size, it's quite well defined. And there are links to all of the Commission guidance for how to determine it. So there is you can now see it on the screen there. In general, it's staff headcount, it's the turnover and the balance sheet total. But in reality, the complexity is that it is not yours alone. If you are owned by a bigger company to more than a certain percentage, it is also the total turnover of the company who is owning you. So we have most of the let's say companies that consider themselves to be small, that later on fail and is considered large, is because of the ownership structure, which is quite complex to manage. It's nothing that REACH can do anything about. We are reusing the Commission's statement of what the SME is. And we quite often say that this is something that the technical person who is responsible for substances in the company should potentially not be the person who decides the company size. It's something where you should get your financial people in and help you to put in place before you start to send invoices, because you might be, ECHA is going to go through all of the size checks later on. So at some point you might need to figure it out later on. We have quite some information available on the ECHA website in related to this, to the SME, to figure out how to calculate it.
I wonder if you have considered to ask the registrants to define the actual numbers which decides whether it's a big or a small company, so that it is your obligation to take the decision.
We do, but the way that if you compare REACH, in the biocide atmosphere, you have to apply before, and you have to submit in all the data, and based on the decision, you will then be able to submit. The way REACH is implemented is that it is checked afterwards. So what our SME team is doing is that it started from 2010, it started contacting all of the companies who said that they were SMEs, and they have asked them to prove it postum, so after the situation. And that is what we're going to do most probably during the next 5 to 10 years. So yes, we're going to do it, but we're not able to do it on the fly. You can think about the numbers. If you would have to do SME checks and translation of financial documents from different languages, I mean, it would take forever. It would be a bigger task than to get the data for each in place. So it will happen, but it happens postum. Any other question?
My name is Mrs. Alam. Yes. My name is Mrs. Alam, and I am a lead registrant for 2 substances. So I have to fill out all the study summaries, you know, in IUCLID dossier. It is an obligation to attach the final report of the studies.
So under REACH, the full study report is not needed to be attached to the dossier. So what is needed is a robust study summary. So all the endpoint study records that have to be created in Euclid. So what can happen is during the assessment, the evaluation, if your substance is subject to compliance check or substance evaluation, then we might ask for more information, including the full study report. But this is not part of the initial submission. It's not mandatory under REACH. It is under biocides, but not under REACH. Can you say?
Most of the time we are receiving not really the final report. As you know, the labs are very overloaded. So the final report, I don't think we will receive it really early. Maybe it should be in June, but we have just the draft, which it's very easy for me to copy paste and to fill out the information. But the final report, it will be too late for me to attach them to the dossier.
I think it's fine. They are not needed. So if the information is being reviewed, maybe it's for you to keep track of the status of the study inside Euclid and come back if there are any deviations in the final report compared to the draft. Then come back to the dossier to update it afterwards. But
okay, so I can update the file after mid 2018.
In case there is a need, if there are differences between the draft and the final report, yes, yeah, you will need to update. But
that's something that two things that we haven't mentioned during the day. The first thing is that the dossier submission doesn't end with REACH 2018. There's going to be need to update the dossiers later on in the future. That's why we are emphasizing your need to make sure that you keep your data sets. The cloud is a perfect place for an SME to store the data set, to do changes to it the next time you need to update it. A second thing is that we didn't mention anything about the Kesar tool today because there was a training yesterday about it. But of course, and yesterday in the Kesar training, there was the test case was that you connect Kesar to a local Euclid. You can also connect Kesar to the IUCLID Cloud the same way. You just take the URL that you have to your Euclid and you put it into Kesar, and they can communicate with each other as well. That wasn't apparently mentioned yesterday, so we covered that now.
Yeah, and there is a nice video tutorial to guide you through these steps. So if you are using Kesar and you are using the cloud, then you can go on this EU Chemicals YouTube channel and watch this 2-3 minutes video tutorial on how to connect Kesar with IUCLID Cloud. And they show all the steps, and it's really easy to synchronize the two versions together.
That concludes our exercise, and now we are moving over to what we call the advanced Q&A and on the IT tools. So at the time of registration, you had the possibilities to mention what you would like to hear about during the day here. And based on this, we have prepared some slides, and we will start working on them. But if there's something that you also would like to ask directly, you can do that as well. But I think we will start with Alexis. There was one question that came up that related to the notification emails coming in Reach IT and how to set them up. If we start by showing that.
So you know that we advise that you log in to Reach IT frequently, mainly to check that you have received your submission number, that you have received or not your invoice, etc. So we know that some people don't log in so often. So for that, there is this email alert where you can set it, you can put an email address or several email addresses in Reach IT. So every day, if there is something happening in your Reach IT account, you will receive an email to your inbox saying like, okay, this is an example. Here is the report for 22nd of, this was from last year, February 2017. And it says the company name, so my legal entity UID, and it says what is the update, what has happened that day. So that day it happened that I received an invoice, so it says one task was created, verify and pay your invoice. And then 4 messages, one giving me the welcome to a new joint submission, as you see at the bottom of the page, the confirmation of the dossier submission, that the dossier submission was accepted after business rule check, and then my dossier submission was completed. So all that in one day, and for it also gives me to which submissions happen this. So in order to set this, probably you are aware, but in case there is somebody here that is not aware, so I can show you where is the place. So you just go to menu, and you go to email notification settings, and here you just put the email that you want to indicate where you want to receive the email notification settings. So every day, if something happens in Reach IT, you will get this information. If nothing happens in Reach IT, if you don't receive an invoice, if you don't get a task, you don't receive a message in your email account. Check that you don't receive those emails in your spam folder. So, and if you receive in the spam folder, mark them as not spam, because it can be also the case.
try to see what happens when you shift that over. Okay, the next thing we'll show you is the how to link a foreign user. The same as Francois just showed, we have on the video tutorials, we have created quite some videos in relation to the cloud and to Euclid. And here's also one on how to add a consultant to help you in the Euclid Cloud. The same video can, of course, apply to how do I link a consultant to support me, or a colleague, or someone else from another company to work in my ReachIT account. So the information you need to do is, if I start, for example, from the cloud service, I click here on my manage account, and then I move to my information about my account details. I will need my username, and I need my legal entity UUID. So what I'm going to show now is that this is the SHD1 company here is the consultant, and he would like to work for another company. So as a consultant, I go to the company that needs to give away information, and I provide him with my username and my legal entity UUID. This is information that no one else can know, most probably, this combination. So by giving that to the other company, who is called another test account, by going them to their manage account as well, under the user section, they can click here and add something which is called add foreign user. So when I click add foreign user, and I said I wanted to take that username, and I wanted to add with that legal entity UUID, I want to give access. It's a UUID, yes. It's not orthodox, but it's okay. So then it will ask you if you want to assign a user to that legal entity. I will say yes. And then I come to the most critical part. So now I can decide what kind of access rights I give to the user on the other side. Now I want him to be able to create the dossiers for me, so I need to give him the Euclid Cloud SME. I've already done the subscription. And I want him to submit in ReachIT for me, so I choose ReachIT Manager. And then I click Save. And yes. And now that is done. So now when I look at my users, I will see that I have my own account here, and then I have this travel case showing that I have one foreign user also using the right with these access rights to my company. If we then move over to look at what it looks for this guy, if I go back here and I say I want to go to the cloud service, in the same place here now I'm in my own cloud, because it says so here in my upper right corner that I'm working for SHD training company number 1. But if I would like to work for the other company, I click on this switch legal entity, and I can click here, and then I can work for the other company. As you can see, it looks different because I do not have the administrator rights. I cannot subscribe on their behalf. So if he wouldn't have subscribed, I wouldn't have had access. I didn't give the user access to the trial environment, which means that he doesn't see the trial environment at all. But I can access the service that he gave to me. If I go back via the manage account, and for example go to ReachIT, the first time I come in, it will tell me that I need to accept the terms and conditions. I will always come to my own company, but here as well, when I click on this, it will allow you to work on behalf of the other company. So this is how you can do it. Now, if once the agreement with the contractor goes away, and I no longer want him to work for me, and I don't want him to see anything I'm doing anymore, I just go back here and I click, he no longer needs to have access to my data, and he will no longer have access to your data. So this is how you deal with this giving access, having the consultants work on your behalf, etc. Good? Unless there are any other hot topics, we'll continue on the list that you had provided in the beginning, and I'll give over to Francois.
Okay, so we collected some questions during the registration period for this training, but we collected also 2 additional questions during this training. I think there was one question on the report generation, and the other one was
About starting an old Euclid and transferring it.
okay, transferring into a new Euclid. So these topics are covered also in this presentation. There are many topics that are listed there. We don't have the time to go through all of them, but I wanted to give you some hints about what they are, what are these advanced features, and maybe where to find more information if you're interested after this training to have a look. So there are different topics organized here on this slide. There is some generic information about the Euclid user interface and the help available. We saw today the cloud, but there is also the desktop and the server version that you might have to use. So there's some information in this presentation about this. Then there are some slides on how to report data in Euclid for very specific cases. There is something about the dynamic content validation. You will see that depending on where you are in Euclid and depending on which field you select, then more or less information is available for you to enter. For example, if you select a data waiver for an endpoint, then you will be prevented from entering results for the study because you are waiving the study. It means that you are not providing experimental data, but you are providing instead a justification why this information cannot be provided. So this is called dynamic content validation in Euclid. If you want also, we can go into more details into substance identity and how to provide it, how to provide, for example, the boundary composition to define this substance identity definition that is agreed at the CIF level. We can also explore how to report read across in Euclid, how to report waivers. There are also additional features that are used to add data to Euclid. One of them is the PNEG calculator and the DNL calculator. These tools are really useful in case you have to perform a hazard assessment. So mainly for the lead or for the individual registrants who needs to calculate these thresholds that should not be for which the concentration in the environment and the exposure concentration for human should not be above these values. Then there are some slides about opting out, how to do an opt-out, and in which case you do an opt-out. Changes between Euclid 5 and Euclid 6. For those of you who are used to Euclid 5, then there are some hints and tips on what you should know in case you need to update or if you need to retrieve data, Euclid 5 data into Euclid 6. Then there are all these features that we can also discuss about. But I will start with the latest bullet point, where to find more information. Because after the training, when you are back in your office, you might want to explore other things and find more information about Euclid. So I'll start with that, where to find more information about Euclid. So the first thing is, if you are using this Euclid version, so the desktop and or the server version, you might know that there is some help already embedded in the application itself. So it can be accessed here from the main page, help, also here. And when you are using the application, for example, when you are importing something, you will find this question mark a bit everywhere. And when you click on that, it will open more detailed explanation on how to use this feature. So if I open the help system from the home page, it gives you access to a short introduction to this help feature. And then you can navigate to different parts. The first part is the full user manual on Euclid 6 functionalities. So if you want to know more about the Pinay calculator, you can find more information there. So that's the first part of the help system. The second part is it's all these submission-related manuals. So there you can find specific information on how to prepare a rich inquiry. These are the manuals that are published also on the ECHA website, but when you are preparing an inquiry dossier using Euclid, then at least you have the manual directly there in the application while you are working. And this kind of manual is guiding you step by step and Euclid section by Euclid section in order to fill in the information you need for inquiry, for registration and reports, and also for other dossiers, REACH related or biocides related. And finally, the last part of this help system is the document part, so it's field by field instructions. You might have seen that in the cloud. It's embedded in the user interface. You have this question mark in the cloud with some specific help on each field. So for each field, you can find some more information about what kind of information to provide. And this part of the help can be accessed also while you are filling in the information in Euclid. For example, you are working on a substance dataset, this test dataset. You are filling in the information, and you want to know, for example, what to fill in for as the type of substance or the origin of the substance. And there you press F1, and you should be redirected directly to, yeah, it doesn't work now, to the field. So usually it's working, so yeah, I have to check why it was not working on this section 1.1. But here you see I was in this section here, basic toxicokinetics. I selected endpoint, I pressed F1, and then I have more information, generic information on what kind of data should be provided in this field. So this is what you can use while working with Euclid to, at least the first times when you want to know exactly what to report in which field. Another source of information, it's the list of Euclid video tutorials that are published on the ECHA YouTube channel. You will see the links in the presentations that we will share after the training to everybody. But you go on YouTube, you search for EU chemicals, and you will find a playlist with Euclid video tutorials. We have 18 videos now, and the first one were on how to install Euclid 6 desktop, how to backup and restore, how to run the validation assistant. And then we started to create video tutorials on how to use the IUCLID Cloud version. So that's why we had this video tutorial on how to synchronize Quasar with IUCLID Cloud. We have also how to use this guided dossier preparation in IUCLID Cloud, what you did today, this dossier preparation for REACH 2018. So this is an introduction to this feature is given there in this video tutorial. What else? On this Euclid 6 website, we have under support documentation, you have access to a lot of information, so training materials, but also videos and webinars that you can consult directly from there. And some additional information about the report generator, or all the guidance documents and the user manuals and the installation manuals are there as well. Finally, we have this LinkedIn group. So you can subscribe to follow this LinkedIn group where we publish some information related to Euclid. So there is a webinar next week, or yes, next Friday. Yep. Friday next week on the cloud. And there are other questions about availability of training packages or new functionalities. So if you want to receive more information, you can subscribe to this LinkedIn group. And you will receive notifications each time there is something posted there. Okay, and I forgot one more thing. In case you have any questions about Euclid functionalities or how to enter data in Euclid, you can always contact the ECHA help desk or the help desk in the national authorities to get support. So before we start going into more details into some of these items here, is there a specific interest from this room to start with one of the points here? Or shall I select randomly, or we start with the report generator eventually to answer one of the questions previously asked? So, okay, opt-out, okay. Is there any other request to start with in a specific order, or no, not for the moment? But let's have a look at the opt-out then. You see that here there are, I lost the connection. No.
It went on the fly. I don't know how that happened. I thought you did it on purpose. It looked okay.
So you see in this presentation there are many slides. I will not go through all the slides, but what we will do is that we will place this presentation online on the training page on the Euclid website so that you can have a look afterwards if you are interested in looking into more details into this. So the opt-out, how does it look, how does it work? You saw how it was working in the Euclid Cloud, and this is how it is working in Euclid 6, the desktop version. And first, why would you, in which case would you need to opt out from a joint submission? You can do that as a lead or as a member in case you cannot share some information with the other members of the joint submission because it's too costly or because it would, it's confidential business information that you cannot share with the joint submission. Opt-outs are possible for anything that is related to study summaries. And if you want to provide the information on classification labeling, something else than what is provided by the joint submission, then you need to opt out as well. So basically, you can opt out for anything that is stored under section 2.1 GHS CLP, and anything that is stored under section 427, so FISCEM properties, fate and behavior, ecotox, and toxicological information. So if you need to opt out, what you need to do is to provide this information, the information for which you are opting out, inside your dossier. Here you can see that it's, you are preparing a REACH registration member of a joint submission, and we have included a bioaccumulation study summary here. And in order for this study to be submitted as part of your member dossier, you need to create an opt-out information record under section 14. And there, in this record, you indicate that I want to opt out for bioaccumulation, classification labeling, or any other endpoint study records. And you need to provide the justification. And the justification is not justification for the opt-out like it is displayed here, but it is the reason why you cannot share the information with the joint submission. So once the dossier contains this information, your study will be included and will be part of the dossier you are preparing as a member and part of the dossier you submit to ECHA. So if you want to see that during the dossier creation, to just make sure that the records is included, in Euclid you do it first by selecting the type of submission you want to create, in that case a member of a joint submission. And if you have created your dossier or your dataset with this opt-out document and the information you want to opt out, the data will be included by default. But if you want to see that, you can click on Advanced Settings, and you will see at this step that it's automatically included in your dossier because you indicated that you wanted to opt it out from it, which means that you need to provide the information. So that's how it works in Euclid. In the cloud, it was the same. If you create, or if you want to add some additional information in your member dossier, don't forget to create an opt-out document just to make sure that you will include this information in the dossier you are preparing. Because by default, these sections are not included for a member dossier. So it's an exception you have to create for that. Do you have any question on the opt-out? No, it's okay. Then we will switch to the report generator maybe, and Mark will present that. Maybe not in details, but he will give you an idea of what this tool is for, and he can answer the question on that was asked during the training. Do you want to switch to your computer?
Thank you, Francois. So this is the regular Euclid 6 interface. You can also make this appear by going to the cloud client from Euclid Cloud. And here in the plugins, you see Report Generator. Now, this is a tool where you can extract information from your Euclid database and output it in a sort of printable format. So, for instance, in a Word document or a PDF document or even in an XML. Its main use is to generate a chemical safety report. That's what it's sort of known by. So, for instance, if I go to a substance and I click on Generate Report, you can see here chemical safety report is an option of a report type. So then I simply select what output type I want, where I want to save it. And then in the background jobs here, if I open this up, it will show the report being generated. And this will output as an RTF in a Word file. Now, the report generator is a bit more flexible than just doing a chemical safety report. It can also store other reports that we sort of define here in ECHA, or you can define yourselves if you so wish. So, for instance, if we open up the report generator and look for a mixture product, I have a number of other reports I can select here. So, for instance, there's a number of predefined reports. So, for the Biocidal Products Regulations, the confidentiality report, there's a list of attachments, which gives you a big list of attachments for the mixture product. And for literature references, there's also a report where it defines all the literature references in a mixture of product. You can define these reports yourself. There's more information on the Euclid 6 website about this. I can show that now. So this is the Euclid 6 homepage. If I go to Support, Documentation, and go to Report Generator. So So here's some more information about the report generator more generally, plus all the different types of reports we have inbuilt in Euclid, plus all the ones, plus report templates which you could actually upload yourselves if they aren't yet in Euclid. And some information about how to create the report templates yourself. What we do is that on this page, if there is a report that we haven't yet made available as a predefined report in Euclid, we will put it on this page so you can upload it yourself. This is very easy. All you need to do is go to the report generator plugin, go to manage reports, add, and you can add the report templates there. You can give a name to the template. So for instance, we're currently developing a new template for annotations, which will list all the annotations of a dataset or dossier. Here you can upload the templates. They normally have an extension with FTL on the end. So for instance, I will give you an example. So they look like this, and you can select these. You can select what kind of output you want for the report, so for instance in Word or PDF. You can also further define the style of the report by adding a style sheet, but that's a little bit more advanced. And then you can also select which entities are applicable for the report. So for instance, if you've done a report or there's a report available only for mixture products, you can just select mixtures and save that. And now when I go to actually create a report for that mixture product, it will appear as a new report type. The thing I should have said probably at the start is that for reports, they can be generated per dataset or dossier, so it's only a report per one dataset or one dossier. You can't generate a report for multiple dossiers or datasets as yet. So I think that's all. If you would like to, if you have any questions, you can ask me now, or you can go to the Euclid 6 website and take a look. If you ever have any questions, you can go through the ECHA help desk, or you can go through the Euclid 6 functional mailbox, and we can respond directly to you there. So thank you.
Okay, I don't know, Mark, if you addressed this question we had about the difference between the CSR, but I can do it if you want. Yeah. There was a question concerning the difference between the chemical safety report generated from Euclid compared to the one generated from KSAR. You saw that you can generate a chemical safety report from Euclid and also from the cloud. And what is generated from there, it's section 1 to 8 of the chemical safety report. Maybe for those who attended the KSAR training yesterday, you will see that there is also the possibility to generate the CSR from KSAR. And in that case, it will generate the section 1 to 8 based on Euclid information. So it's exactly the same. But it will add also section 9 and 10, which are covering exposure and risk characterization, which is coming from KSAR. But the part that is common, 1 to 8, is exactly the same whether you generate it from KSAR or from Euclid. I wanted to give you at least some information, some tips about the read across. We didn't use that during the training, but usually when you have to fulfill the information requirements for a substance, you will have study results to report. But in some cases, when you are lacking some information, you can read the data from another substance and apply it to the substance you want to register. It's called read across. And there is a specific way to report that in Euclid. And this way has changed last year. So it was a bit different in Euclid 5 compared to Euclid 6. So I will focus on this Euclid 6 part here, how it is done in nowadays. So read across is always reported as a source target structure. So it means that if you are using data from another substance in order to apply it to your substance, you have to provide two pieces of information. You have to provide the source information, so the original study for another substance, and add that to your dossier. And you have also to create another record in order to report the information that you calculated or that you applied to the substance you are registering. So there are two different ways to do read across. The first one is using a category approach. If you have many substances defined in your as a category in your dossier, so you use the information from different substances in order to provide the information required for your substance. There, the source information is going to be stored in data sets that are for the category member, so independent data sets. And the target information will be in the substance you register with the value for the endpoint you have calculated for the substance you register. So that's for the category approach. And we didn't look at how to report categories in Euclid, but there is some information on the Euclid website on how to do that. Then there is another approach for the read across, which is by using a supporting substance or an analog, so a substance that is really similar to the substance you want to register. And in that case, you would need, as I said, to include the source of the information, so the property that was calculated from another substance, and describe the study results and the full study summaries for this source document inside Euclid. And you will need also to add the target data, so the endpoint value that you would use for the substance you register. You can go in more details because it's a bit maybe difficult to understand like this, but the main thing to understand is that you always need the source information and the target information inside your Euclid dossier. You cannot say that this is the outcome of my read across and the information I used is somewhere else. We need to have all the information in the dossier in order to do the assessment later on to make sure that the read across was adequately applied. So that's for the read across. Then I wanted to show something about the data waiver. So in order to fulfill information requirements, and I lost this again. In order to fulfill the information requirements, you can either provide the study results, use a read across, use QSAR, but you can, if you don't need to provide this information for the substance, for example, it doesn't make sense technically to assess one property of the substance because its physical state or other reasons, then you have to waive the information requirement. So you cannot simply not include the data. You have to say that I'm not including the data because it doesn't make sense, and this is the reason why. And it's a bit different from reporting a study result. So in that case, what we would expect is to fill in the fields data waiving and to provide a justification. So you can select the main reason why you waive the data, because of exposure considerations. For example, you can show and demonstrate that there is no exposure for your substance and you don't need to assess this hazard property, or technically it's not feasible to perform the study, etc. And what you need to provide as well is a justification. So usually it's an endpoint specific justification why you are not providing the data for this substance for this endpoint. And in case you cannot find a proper justification in the list of justification that is already available in Euclid, then you need to provide your own justification and be as detailed as possible, because we are going to check that the justification is valid and applies to your substance. Okay, I think that's all for the data waivers. I don't know if you want to see something else, but I want to show something else just before we leave you. The migration is a bit too much. But I wanted to show you the DNL calculator and the PNEC calculator, at least to explain what they are and what they do. Not in details, because you can see we have webinars and video tutorials on that, but just to give you an idea of what it is and how you could use it. And I'm going to take the example of the PNEC calculator, but the DINEL calculator logic is a bit similar. So if you know how to use one, you can easily use the other one. Okay. So what is the PNEC calculator doing? It allows to calculate PNEC based on the information you have in your Euclid dossier. So if you are a lead of a joint submission, you will provide all the hazard information, and you will have, if a CSR is required, you will need to calculate PNECs and DINELs. So what our recommendation is to fill in the information in the different section, and the relevant sections for the PNECs are section 6. And once you have filled in the information, you can also summarize the outcome of the study results in what we call endpoint summaries. So you can summarize what is the effect on algae, what is the effect on sediment organisms or other aquatic organisms. And you can also summarize the adsorption and desorption study results in these endpoint summaries. And when it is done, you can create under section 6 a document to store the PNEC, and it will create an empty document where your PNEC can be stored. But when you right-click on this document, you can use this PNEC calculator, click Calculate PNEC, and the tool will retrieve the information you have summarized in the different endpoints and will propose PNEC values in line with the guidance R10, which is describing how to perform the hazard assessment for the environment. So this tool is going to use all the default values that are specified in the guidance document and propose PNEC values for the aquatic environment, so freshwater and also sediment and soil. And what you can do is use these defaults if you agree with them, or if you have reasons to deviate from these defaults, you can always edit these values by pressing here, change the values and give justification why you are deviating from the defaults of the guidance. So this is what the PNEC calculator is doing. It's helping you in calculating the PNEC and filling in the endpoint summary in section 6. The DINEL calculator is doing the same for section 7 and the hazard assessment for humans, for the different populations and groups of individuals. I think that's all for today. You will have the possibility to go back to this presentation if you want after the meeting, and we will have a coffee break after Tommy's close the training. You can also meet us at the coffee break and ask more questions or to us if you want.
Thank you. I don't think we have any more slides. I can't remember if I created a... Yeah, this congratulations slide is still valid, I think. From the organizing side, I have nothing more to say today. I am extremely happy that you're still here, I hope you enjoyed the day. As I said already at the closure of the exercise, I'm very happy with the way that everything went smoothly and nicely, no technical hiccups. I think you got the support you needed. We didn't want to give you too much support so that you got some kind of work you've done yourself as well. And I hope you learned something and felt that it was worthwhile to come over here before the Stakeholders Day. A quick reminder about the Stakeholders Day still tomorrow. It's not in Eka this time, it's in the Scandic Congress Marina. That you can find in Katajanokka. But as Francois said, from our side now, we will close this event. There is new fresh coffee on the outside if you want to have a coffee before you leave, but after that, nothing else. So thank you very much.